hello, everyone. Welcome to the Black Robe podcast. We have Quincy from Campfire Coffee joining us today. Quincy, how are you? How are you doing?
Fantastic. Thank you for having me on. It is an honor. It's a pleasure. Ready to get into some good stuff.
Right on. And we also have Faith with us. She is interning with IBJ for the quarter. Say hi, Faith. Unmute.
Hello, everybody. Nice to participate in valuable discussions for our community and all that. I'm proud to be here. Thank you, Tia, for having me.
Yes, of course. So let's just jump right in because I'm super excited to have this conversation with you, Quincy. You are the owner of Campfire Coffee. What inspired you to get into this industry? Like, how was Campfire born?
It was really necessity. This was not like a planned dream. We needed jobs, straight up. I mean, I was working in marketing. I was partnering in a little agency up in Seattle. And in the summer of 2018, one day unexpectedly got let go. It was completely out of the blue. And a few months later, wifey, she's working in mental health at the time and working at a hospital. She got attacked by one of her patients. Yeah, and got a real nasty concussion. And her doctors too were recommending that, she's already a disabled veteran, right? And so they're saying, this probably isn't a long-term, solution for you. And for me, I was kind of over the whole marketing world where it's kind of like every 2 years you got to start over anyway. And so, yeah, we were just coming home from visiting her parents, who they're also military. They're stationed in Utah, and we were visiting them one Thanksgiving. That was Thanksgiving of 2018, I believe it was. And on the drive home, it's 13 hours. So it was like perfect time to just be like, what are we going to do? And we had nothing better to do. And she threw out the idea of starting a coffee company. And we laid out the whole kind of vision for what we wanted it to be on this drive home from Utah. But it was really, I'm not going to lie, this was not like I always wanted to be in coffee. Nah, it was none of that. It was just the circumstances we were in. So we tried to make the best of it.
Yeah, understood. Sometimes you have to, as I like to call it, pivot, even when you don't really want to pivot, but sometimes that's what happens. The things that don't seem like a blessing later end up being the biggest blessing, right?
The hugest. I mean, at the time it was scary. I was pissed off. I got 3 kids. I got a mortgage. I got 2 cars. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we had the whole deal going, and all of a sudden I get let go really for nothing. I mean, at the end of the day. So yeah, but it turned out, I mean, that was the biggest blessing, it was almost like the universe just knew in order for me to be able to really like reach my potential, I needed to be pushed into a situation that was uncomfortable, because I was real comfortable at that time. I was real comfy. It was comfy pay, it was comfy schedule. And it was like, nah, man, you can do more than this. Let's go ahead and throw you off the ledge and see what you can do on the deep end.
So what has been the biggest challenge, like just trying to build up the business and get to where y'all are now? Like, tell us a little bit more about that story.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it was we didn't have coffee experience. You folks like us just don't really, you don't see too many of us working in coffee, let alone owning, a coffee spot. And so it was really like, okay, well, one of us is going to have to figure out how to actually make a latte. Because we love coffee, don't get me wrong. We love the outdoors, right? And camping and hiking kind of been central to our relationship. And so every time we would camp, we would have little K-cups or, some Folgers, and we doing the percolator, but like actually making drinks, lattes and Americano. We didn't know about that. So the big thing in the beginning was the education behind the product we were trying to sell. And then it was a lack of knowledge of what it kind of took to start a business. We thought, if we had X amount of dollars, and in our case at that time, it was $10,000. We thought if we had 10 grand, man, we're going to be off to the races. And boy, were we wrong about that. And so, we learned the importance of just capital, you know what I mean? And how to get it. And now as like the business has grown and evolved, it's just like playing a video game. You know how the saying goes, there's levels to this, right? Like the first time you play a new level on the video game, you'd be lucky to conquer it. It takes a few tries and you know what I mean, before you can get the skill. So it's like every year we grow so fast and opportunities come. And so, a lot of my job is like, now we're just trying to figure out what are the right opportunities for us. Not all money's good money. Not every opportunity is the right opportunity. And so one thing I think that has helped us the most is, I think from the very beginning, thanks to that drive home, we had a very kind of clear idea of what we wanted to do and how we wanted to do it. And so now it's kind of like taking that lens and filtering all these opportunities through that. Will this work for us? And I'll look at everything, and that's part of it. And that's another thing that kind of I'm developing right now, is the ability to not have to look at it like looking at something on the surface and being like, yeah, I know off top, this doesn't meet our standard of what we're trying to do. Because I'll waste a lot of time exploring an opportunity just for it to not be. And most of them aren't, most of them aren't really worth your time. Not that they're not good opportunities, just for where we're at, at that given time, it just ain't the one. So yeah, I mean, it seems like every year is a new challenge. I know next year, as we're opening more stores up. So now we go from, operating one store with wholesale, with e-commerce, to operating 2, maybe 3, possibly even 4 stores with all of that. We had to learn how to scale up with our roasting, because how we roast is very non-conventional. And so we had to figure that out. We had to figure out our processes and figure out our systems on the go. So yeah, it's that too. It's like learning how to remove yourself from, kind of just remove yourself from your emotions tied to the business and look at it subjectively and just say, hey, this is where we lacking. Like, we love doing it like this, but we lack in here. So we need to look at ways to improve and X, Y, and Z, and always, right? Like cash flow, learning about the cash flow and how all that works in this game. And it's different. It's a way different ball game than what either of us have been used to. But, I'd much rather be doing this than anything else.
I have a question for you. You mentioned not all money is good money. Can you explain what good money is to you and how you make those decisions on who to work with or to buy from or to just interact with on the daily?
Look, Faith, that is a fantastic question, because for us, I could take that in a couple of different perspectives. One of the big things is we get asked a lot to do fundraisers for people. But, a big part of our business is fundraising for outdoor youth-focused, diverse-focused outdoor education programs. And we usually do, it could be 2 to 3 a month sometimes. And so sometimes you'll get hit up by a great organization, say a big one, that, if you partner with them, like it's going to give you some great visibility, but it might steer you off of the mission. Why that's important to us right now, especially, is because we're still so new. Like we're 3 years in, and even though a lot of people know us, there's 10 times the amount that don't. And the last thing I want to do is allow one little project that's kind of left of our center hijack our narrative for the new people, right? It already happens, right? Like people will start to pick and pull apart certain parts of who you are to fit what they want it to be. And so I'm really protective of the opportunities that we take on and making sure that they're a good fit, because yeah, sure, it's money, but the money's got to make sense for our long-term goals as well. You know, you're not going to catch us doing a fundraiser for, say, like the NRA. Like, you know what I mean? Like on paper, the numbers are like, dang, that's a multi-million person organization and they drink coffee and blah, 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 blah. But on so many levels, we don't align. You know what I mean? It's just not good money right there. I wouldn't take that. And not that the NRA has ever hit us up to do, and they haven't, but I'm just using that as an example because at the same time, I'm looking at like, I got to look at all of these opportunities because, you know, more revenue would allow us to be able to do more things for our people internally and externally. So it's like you owe it to them to at least explore it. But at the same time, you want to stand by your principles too. Another thing is just looking at like, my phone gets blown up all day from loan sharks. My number is just out there now. And it's all these people want to give us these high interest loans, high interest, lines of credit. Not that we couldn't utilize some of that in some situations, but again, back to the cash flow thing, right? If you get offered some loan, yeah, we can give you $500,000 a day at X amount of percent. Okay, that's cool. But that interest rate is so much where the payback terms are so much, pinning us down in the corner where like that we're going to be hamstrung with what we can do because we got to pay vendors and they're on terms and we got to wait for vendors to pay. So it's all about cash flow. And sometimes when you get in those situations, and I'll tell people all the time, especially our crew, they'll see me in the shop some days like, dang, Q, man, your phone blowing up. I'm like, yeah, that's somebody wanting to give us some money. And they're like, what? How come you don't take it? I'm like, you'll figure out real quick, like this $500,000 at 20% or whatever, or paid back within 12 months like that, man, I'd have to lay everybody off just to pay this loan back. So where it's like one of the big hindrances was capital. You get to the point where, and pretty quick, I think a lot of businesses will get to the point pretty quick where those types of offers are no longer appealing because you have other interests to look out for, and for some people, it probably fits, but for where we're at, what we're trying to do, nah, it's got to be a good situation. If somebody wants to give us money like that, I mean, it's got to be a good rate. It's got to be a good payback term. It's got to allow for some flexibility in what we can do. So, and I get, when you're not in that position, you're like, man, give me that. Man, let me hold that. I'll freak that out. I'll show you how to. Yeah, it's really not that easy. It's so much more to it than that when you're talking about, good money and bad money. And those are the two main ones that I kind of deal with all the time.
What about with your products? So you mentioned like loan sharks and like partnering with orgs. So what about like where you get your coffee from? Even like the machines you have, like, does that also play into like your mission all the way down to everything that's in your place? Or is it more of like the relationships you have with the local boards and stuff?
Sure, to a degree, it's some of both. I try to, given that we're a company that is a coffee roaster, obviously, but that coffee is tied to this mission to creating more access to more individuals, Black and brown folks primarily, to outdoor spaces and the youth, no doubt. So in that, like if you laid down a Venn diagram, right, there's all these kind of adjacent things like environmentalism and sustainability and eco-friendliness that we kind of tend to lean ourselves towards. And there's, you know, you go in the shop and you'll see we got the hay straws, right? We use the hay straws. We try to use all recycled materials. I tried to use, and we've been pretty successful in this. Even our equipment is usually stuff that's been refurbed and pulled out of a shop. A lot of that coffee equipment, you know, when shops close down, if they don't get handed off to someone else, they just end up in the landfill somewhere. So usually every piece of equipment you see in there, it's been salvaged from something. Those fence boards that are lining my bar, those come from old fence boards that were about to get burned up in our neighborhood. I went and salvaged those. Same thing with the bar top. The shelving we use, that stuff was overstocked from IKEA that was on its way out to the landfill. The espresso machine is a refurb. The drip machine is a refurb. Our tables, the round wood tables in there, those wood slabs came from the wildfires in California about 4 or 5 years ago. And the table bases came from a restaurant that was shut down. So we try to be mindful about that kind of thing, right? Because not only it doesn't make financial sense to do that, but it also, you know, keeps us true to what we're trying to do and build good stewards of the environment. On the other side of that too, though, it is, you know, the kind of organizations that we work with. And early on, it was like anybody that wanted to work with us that was somewhat outdoorsy, we was jumping at it. And now we're at this point where we're kind of shifting the focus because we're going to be expanding our footprint to get more local. You know, we want to work with wherever we're going to have a shop. Sure, we'll still do some national campaign stuff, no doubt. But we want to try to lean into the local organizations that are doing work that we're trying to do and help support them in that as well through the fundraisers and the coffee bags and whatever else. So at this point, we're looking at like, instead of going wide, which we did, that was the strategy, go wide, get your name out there, show people that you want to do this work. Now we want to go deep where we at and get really embedded with the handful of organizations that are doing good work and also growing our nonprofit side of our business to offer some outdoor education and all of that too. So it's a little bit of both, but you know, it's all a work in progress. I still am trying to find a way, how can I cost effectively, you know, get rid of these plastic cups? How can I do that? You know, I'm not there yet, but we getting there. We getting there slowly.
Oh, that is excellent. So I didn't know that you had a nonprofit site. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so when you go in the shop, you'll see on the wall, there's this thing called Campfire Explorers Club. It's got a little logo on there on a red background. Campfire Explorers Club is our nonprofit that we started that focuses on outdoor recreation and education. So we started it alongside with the coffee shop with the idea that we would do all of these group outings, you know, group hikes, group campouts, one-on-one level stuff for people, but it was COVID, it was the pandemic. So that was crushed. And that's what really kind of pushed us into connecting with other organizations that were already equipped to do that work. So now that we're kind of coming out of it, you know, the World Health Organization has now ended the global emergency of COVID. But now we're like, okay, let's put our curriculum in place because now we feel okay with doing that. We feel okay with bringing groups together to say we're going to spend an hour and a half doing this entry level class in the shop, and then maybe we'll go out and do a day hike at Swan Creek or Point Defiance. But that's what it's all about, is just, hey, we want to be able to connect to the people that want to hike. Maybe they want to camp, maybe they want to try some activity, but they're feeling some kind of way about it. And so the idea is you come into the shop, you would get this one-on-one level class or entry level class, and then you sign up for our gear library. So we got a free gear library with just a little bit of equipment, not a ton. We got some camping gear, some hiking gear. So if you wanted to try out this stuff, you could try it out for free. Because there's a cultural barrier, and then there's a cost barrier. Then there's kind of like a mental barrier. Oh, well, you got to get over the mental barrier of thinking you can do it. You got to cross over the cultural barrier of, you know, we don't sleep in the woods, man. Come on, man. There's bears out there. We got to get over that. So we help you get over that. And then we say, okay, Don't worry about going to REI because you're going to get sticker shock once you do. We got some free, brand new gear that you can check out and use on your next outing. Just, we'll bring it to you. You just bring it back, clean it up, and we'll be there for the next person to use. So that's really why, I mean, that's the whole point of the whole coffee, anything. It's to bring people in for that side of our business.
That is amazing. I love how you've made that accessible for folks. Because yeah, there's definitely some sticker shock in REI. I've been in there and usually walk right back out.
Massive.
Yeah, it's a little on the spendy side. So you said that y'all are expanding. Talk to me a little bit more about that.
So real quick, we have the shop that we're opening, which is right on Pacific and 11th, right downtown. So not far from our Market Street store. That's going to be like our flagship location. We're also opening up the roastery kind of 2 blocks up from there on Court C. So that'll be the roastery. It'll be kind of a different vibe, maybe some tours, and you can learn about the campfire style roasting on, the wood roasting and all that. But what I'm really excited about is we got into 2 retail incubator programs. One is put on by Simon Properties, which is, massive mall company. The other is put on by Brookfield Properties, which is another big mall company. But their programs, so Brookfield's is called Partner to Empower, and it's specifically designed for BIPOC entrepreneurs to be able to get into this really good real estate. And they help with the build outs and the tenant improvements and workshops and classes. So we got invited. We didn't even apply. We got invited to both of them. And so we got in and we were already looking at other spots, in Washington, outside of Washington, and kind of throwing our name in the hat and starting to negotiate for, that's what I'm saying. Like now we're, how it ties into like the mission of the company. We want to be more local focused because now we're going to be in these other neighborhoods. We're going to be, potentially up north in Snohomish County or up in Kitsap County. We're looking at Utah. We're looking at Hawaii. We're looking at California. We're looking at Oregon. So if all of these places actually jump off and work out for us, we want to be able to make an impact in the communities there, hyper local. So we're expanding and also, with the wholesale too. We got some other good wholesale partners coming through the pipeline in addition to already being in Trader Joe's and Made in Washington and the duty-free stores in the airport. So we're slowly but surely kind of turning up the heat on some of these opportunities, right? It's like some opportunities don't make sense, but some of these absolutely make sense, and we got to go at them.
So I have a question for you. You mentioned that you have the gear library, and I think that's awesome. And I'm just wondering, considering the encampment ban that was passed recently, I believe Ordinance 28831, that bans camping within 10 blocks of each shelter. Do you have supplies for the unhoused folks too? Just donations that you give out, since they are out here and very close, like a few blocks away, and like could really use some of that supplies as well. Do you do that type of work?
Here's something that we don't even really share that much with folks about what we do in terms of that. Now, we don't necessarily we have donated tents in the past to organizations to hand out to encampments. That was one of the very first things that we did was I can't think of the name of the group now. But when the pandemic hit, it was a shit show, right? And so we were able to get them a few tents and supplies. But that was kind of a one-off. What we've been doing since the beginning, we opened the shop, and this is something I learned working at Starbucks, which was kind of crazy, is food waste is massive, and that's an issue. And, being where we're located, you know where it is. I mean, we get those folks that cross by all the time, and we're not far from encampments. If we got food that's going out, we'll go just drive it and hand it out to them. That ain't nothing that we announce. We don't make like a big deal about it. But instead of like just tossing that out, you know what I mean? We'll go, we've given out blankets. We have done that when people have donated gear that maybe isn't necessarily like, okay, we can't really use this because it's not really in what people have asked for. We've had some oversized just blankets. Take out some blankets, take out a bunch of sandwiches. Sandwiches are still good. You know what I mean? We'll go roll around, find the encampment and just hand it out. You know what I mean? This is the first time that I've ever mentioned this, like publicly stating it, but that's something that we've been doing since day uno. And that's just, trying to get back to the community in that way, because we do see, when we were first opening up in the pandemic, working in that shop in the little building next door, man, that was just like kind of the spot where folks was just sleeping in front of, just crashing out. You see 2 or 3 of them there. And so, you give them a cup of coffee in the morning, a little pastry or something, you know what I mean? A little book to read. You feel me? We got the free little library that's in there. Some of them will come and ask, you know what I mean? Can I get this book? Absolutely. It's a free library. You know what I mean? You need some reading material to take your mind off of the world. Go ahead and do that. So it's like I said, it's very understated. It's not something that we try to because we don't want to get kudos for that. That's not something. You know what I mean? Give us the daps and love for getting a little kid out into the woods. That's cool. But just, the stuff that the humanity should be doing, we don't need that for that. That's just something we just do.
I love your little library. It's
Right
so great. I brought books there. I found books there. And I appreciate that because, I don't know, that's just good exposure for a lot of people who don't have access to books in general.
Wow.
You mentioned that you haven't really talked about, doing the mutual aid that you do, with especially combating food waste. That's such an important topic that I feel isn't really talked about, honestly. And I think you deserve, or I encourage you to share that you are doing these things, because it's even better to share, because then we could collaborate. If you let me know when you're going out, I could help you out, like if you're gathering supplies, maybe I got a sleeping bag that I haven't used in a really long time, then we could all go out. It's community collaboration. Now, if you're just posting on your social media and like, ooh, look at what I did today, that's different. But
that's right. That's what we're trying to, we don't, you know what I mean? And you see so much of that performative stuff. That's just, you know what I mean?
But posting, hey, this is a call to action. We are looking for camping gear, and this is in line with our mission statement. And we would like to, I don't know, just share camping gear with people who deserve it and are using it to live, which is like, isn't that like crazy that like some people are relying on these things to live, right? And some people look at it as a hobby, and even joining those two worlds together and being like, isn't this such a wonderful thing that we can camp and do that and have housing security? Like, I don't know. I think it's a cool dichotomy, and it really brings people together. And I appreciate you for going out and giving back to the community.
No doubt. I like how you thinking. I like that train of thought. I'm with it.
All right, so I just have one last question for you, Quincy, before we wrap up. And because we're kind of doing this looking at entrepreneurship, Black entrepreneurship, to relate to or learn lessons from, kind of like we did from Greenwood in Tulsa. Our Freedom Summer Symposium is coming up. That's the action, or the call to action is, how do we get the bag? How do we create that generational wealth, right? And break these cycles. So being where you are now and all that you have accomplished, what advice or tools or tips would you give any budding entrepreneurs that might be listening to this episode tonight?
I'll try to make it quick, and I'll try to break down each one of them. a tool that's also kind of advice. When I was doing my PhD studies, I was doing a bunch of reading. I'm doing my dissertation. I came across this theory of entrepreneurship. And that's important to note because most of what they teach you in school about business is about business management, which is not a bad thing, but it's not entrepreneurship. I came across this theory called effectuation or effectual entrepreneurship. And if anybody is out there on the fence about what to do, I would highly recommend going to effectuation.org. This theory is super dope because I feel like it speaks to us as a people. It was actually created at UW Seattle in like 2002 by a Middle Eastern woman named Saraz Sarasvathy. And what she did was she stumbled upon this theory. She interviewed like 300 entrepreneurs from around the world that had companies that were worth $10 million or more, or had a $10 million market cap or something like that. And what she found was that they all thought the same exact way. And this helped me in getting Campfire going. I was literally studying this as I'm doing Campfire. So when I would hit a wall, I would just kind of refer back to this. All it really is, though, is how to be resourceful. It's not just being resourceful, it's how to be resourceful. It's how to look at what you've got constantly. Because what do we do as entrepreneurs, right? We get this idea, and the first thing we do is we start running down the list of all the things we don't have. I ain't got the money. I ain't got the time. I ain't got the resource. I ain't got the people. I got to take care of these kids. I got all these barriers pop up, right? Effectuation makes you think about those things in a completely different way, right? It's magnificent. It just changes the way you think. So I would be thinking about that when it comes to your venture. The other tip I would say is, gosh, just be willing to give it up if you believe in it. You gotta be, there ain't no half step in this. Like, we sold the crib, we moved in with my mama. We was living in the RV in the driveway with 3 kids. Like, we went all the way in. There was no turning back. So that you can't, I mean, for some things, yeah, you might want to hold on to your job so you have your stability. I totally get that. But if you really want this thing to grow, it's just like your child. You got to give it all the attention that you can possibly muster and be ready to change your lifestyle for a little bit to get it to where you want it to go. Lastly, I would say is, gosh, take care of your credit. Baby, take care of your credit, because there's gonna come a time, we crowdfunded. We went on GoFundMe, right? Because we didn't have the money, but I knew I was a marketer. So I could make a video. I could tell a story about what we was trying to do to try to raise the 10,000 we thought we needed. Ended up making 13 to 14,000 off that GoFundMe. And that 13 to 14 grand got us one step closer to where we needed to be. But let me tell you, I mean, and mind you, there wasn't a whole lot we could do because we had just sold the house. That's going to take your credit. Whoa. But look, we didn't even make no money off the house sale. We had to pay out of pocket. We was only in the house like 2 years. We didn't have no equity. So our credit was trashed. But there was a point, where I'd say, we're 3 years in. I'd say about a year and a half in, we started getting hit up by venture capitalists. Yeah, they started walking through the doors, throwing money at us. And I started looking at the situations like, we way too early for that. And right now they're trying to buy really low so they can try to sell really high. I get how the game go. And I could use the capital. They coming in talking money I had never even fathomed because we were just crushing it. But I'm like, if they willing to offer me that, I wish I had the credit to go walk into a bank and just get that on a good line of credit. I wish I had that, because it allows you to, to have that to fall back on. Well, now we there, right? We didn't take the venture capital money. We doubled down on ourselves, but still, things could have been even faster, bigger, if I had known what we were getting into. And also know that it's okay that you're not going to know everything out the gate. I think it's designed for you to not know it, because everybody's hustles to the top is going to be different. Again, I came from marketing, and before that was in the music world and all, but all of that comes into play in running this business, you know what I mean? And being a kid who was fortunate to have both parents at home, but they hustled. Like they worked 40, 50, 60 hours a week, and seeing that hustle, that was one of those things. Like effectuation made me realize, like, what do I really have? It wasn't necessarily the tangible thing. It was like, I got the experience of watching these two go hard for 5 boys over the course of 30 years. Like, am I really built like that? I'm built like that. I can do this. Because they did it. They put it down and they sacrificed and suffered. So with all of that too, and they took care of their credit, they did all the things that they had to do to take care of their family and all of that. Just take care of them things and know that if you really believe in what you're doing, and not so much passion, passion is so overrated, man, because passion is fleeting. You got to really love this. You gotta love this. Whatever it is you're doing, you gotta really, really love it. Passion, I mean, a night, you can have a night of passion, right? Right? You can have a night of that. I ain't never heard nobody say I got a night of love. Like, love is enduring, right? The love is so, and make sure this is the last thing, on a very technical basis, whatever it is you offering or plan to offer, make sure that there's a product market fit. It usually ain't the money that hinders people. Money come, money go. If there ain't no fit for your product in the market, that's where you run into trouble. You could have the best cakes in the world, baby. But if there's already 78 bakers and half of them doing vegan and gluten-free too, where you fit? That's the only reason why I think Campfire was able to really carve out a niche, was because of we were clear that this isn't coffee for coffee's sake. This is coffee with a real mission to make a difference in our literal neighborhood. You ain't gonna see some picture like you walk into Starbucks, a big old picture of some farmer with 2 teeth holding a basket of coffee. Nah, that's not what we doing this for. Much respect to the farmer, but we doing it for the kid that's coming into the little free library and grabbing a book. That's what we doing it for. But we also were able to differentiate just by the way we roast. We roasting, that was my connection. Like, after we started doing it like that, because we couldn't afford no real roaster, like really roasting over a campfire. I remember looking online trying to find videos of people doing this. And the only people I found doing this? I found this video. It had to been 15 years, one of the first videos on YouTube. A brother off in the woods in the Congo, roasting over a fire pit with his shirt off, shaking beans over a fire. And I said, oh, and the narrator was like, yeah, this is how they've been roasting coffee in the Congo for 12 generations. And I was like, oh, so I'm just reclaiming this. This is how we've been getting down. So, what's old is new, whatever, but it's all of that differentiates, that creates a product market fit. And that's where a lot of businesses that I've, seen over time that I worked with in marketing and former life, that's where they fail. They might not have they might love what they do, but they just don't have the right market for it. So that would be it.
No, that was great. That was great, Quincy. Definitely some powerful words of wisdom there. Wow. Yeah, you even got me a lot to think about there. So yes, thank you so much for coming on. This has been an amazing interview. I'm sure our audience will enjoy this at home when they hear it. Just a little plug again for IBJ. We do have the Freedom Summer Symposium coming up, talking about getting that bag. We've got the keynote. Hannibal Johnson is coming to Tacoma, Washington to speak at our event. Tickets are available on our website, so go ahead and check that out there. And they're filling up quick, so I wouldn't wait too much longer to get yours. June 14th, 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. the whole day. It's going to be fantastic. So thank you, Faith, for joining me in doing this podcast, and keeping me company here in Quincy. Thank you again for coming on. I appreciate your wisdom. Much luck to the expansion. I know y'all are going to knock it out the park.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.